Welcome in, everyone, to the final edition of the 2023-24 NFL season board meeting with Bully the Board. As always, it's Kevin, Seth, and Steve with you. The Super Bowl is upon us. It's the big game breakdown, baby. You know what it is. We got a lot to cover. Let's get right into it.
Give a damn about a hater when I feel like it. Not today, not today, not today, not tomorrow. Get out my way, please. I'm trying to get paid. Not today, not today.
Moment of silence for the season that has come and gone. It's been
So
another
sad.
one.
Like
Another
every
one,
week
baby.
we're like, oh, it's just like flying by. It's flying by. Now it's here. Last Saturday and Sunday were like some of the saddest days I've had in months. I just felt like an empty shell of a human.
No football, right? Yeah, I mean, not counting the Pro Bowl because that shit doesn't count.
I was getting ready to say, did anybody even watch the Pro Bowl?
No.
Because I completely forgot.
No.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
didn't. I should have. It looked kind of entertaining, but
I'd rather just watch the highlights on Twitter or Instagram, whatever. You know, it's just about as entertaining as it's going to get. So, yeah, it's here, boys. The Super Bowl is finally here. It's a very interesting matchup. We're going to break down all of it for sure. So, appreciate everyone tuning in today. Make sure you give the video a like. Make sure you give us a subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, please. Season is coming to an end, obviously, but our content and our, I guess, availability to you, if you will not stop. We do have some things planned for the off season, both content wise here and on other platforms. So please, if you could give us a subscribe, we would be greatly indebted to you. Okay, let's jump into it though, boys. Where do you want to start with this one? There's a lot of different angles we can go to. We'll get into the model. We'll get into how these teams kind of match up, but can we put to rest now? Let me start here. Can we put to rest? Are there any conspiracy theories left that anyone's clinging on to? This is as legit. Yeah. What?
No, there is. The Taylor Swift, like Taylor Swift's lucky number is 13. 13 minus 100 is 87. Kelsey's jersey. It takes exactly 13 hours to get from Tokyo to Vegas. Like there's like.
Which is a really damn all right. I didn't realize it was that deep.
Yeah,
but people are grasping, huh?
Oh yeah, no, they're out there. And then you got all these things like, oh well, you know, Taylor Swift is making the NFL this much money, so of course I'm gonna give her kickbacks, and you know, Kelsey's gonna win and this and that. Yeah, it's never been more feverish than now. So,
but it's all the T Swift like angles or theories. That's what it's centered around.
That's it. Yeah, well, because it's like they got to make their money. Like it's all fixed.
Yeah, I think the biggest one I saw was they're going to boot Usher from the halftime show and just give it to T Swift.
Which, look, I'm actually here for that. I would actually prefer T Swift over Usher, in my opinion. But hey,
I will say though, I'm going to call it a conspiracy theory, but the thing we missed out more, and I do think it's probably a conspiracy. We were this close. We were this close to having a T Swift versus Eminem halftime show. Battle of Detroit versus
damn,
and
that's entertainment.
Now if you're a fan of the game, that you should feel robbed. You should write your commissioner.
That's actually a good point. Talk about what are we talking about? Rigged. That's the ultimate rigging. Like if you're like, we can get Eminem versus Taylor Swift, like two of the most like most popular artists of all time.
Yeah. That's funny. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I guess I stand corrected, but it's certainly died down from my vantage point relative to the past couple of weeks with the Super Bowl logo stuff, the referee stuff, and the Chiefs. What was it? The Chiefs Ravens game, right?
Yeah,
even though the logo one wasn't true. No one was talking about it though because the Ravens actually look like shit. Like there wasn't any super questionable calls coming out of that one. Like the Ravens.
I don't know. I immediately after I was getting some people in the live. No, I don't disagree. I don't agree that they called back-to-back holding calls, which moved the Kansas City out of field goal range right before the half. I mean, I filmed it just because I wanted ammo against anybody that came at me.
That's my point. Yeah, that's my point.
No, it's because it's not real. It's not real. Like why would you rig it? You have the best product. Just let it happen. It's way less stressful.
Yeah.
Why would you pay Patrick Mahomes $500 million? If you're the puppet master, like, bro, you do what I tell you. You're making $20 million.
Yeah.
You only make
exactly.
500 because like
Right.
you actually have magic. Like it's actually unscripted. But anyways, I digress. I found this scientist guy on TikTok, and I followed him because all he does is he just argues with conspiracy theories. So he goes and like
Mm.
flat earth people's lives. He goes like all these people like conspiracy theory, and his whole thing is like the problem with conspiracy theories is when you give them more information, it's just more data that like the dissent in the like the conspiracy is even more real. Like they're lies. So you're like, I just more shout out to that guy because like he literally just makes a living
Yeah,
arguing
that
with,
takes
conspiracy theory. So
that takes
shout out to
some
him.
patience. I'll say for sure. But
Yeah,
all
for
right,
real.
yeah, we digress. We digress. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of the game matchup and breakdown here. So Niners and Chiefs. Um, the market, and I mean, so we got a couple of bits here. This obviously is slightly misleading just because of the scale
Yeah,
of where these two teams are. It's not the Niners are worlds better than the Chiefs. I mean, you can kind of see here relative to the league, relative to the rest of the league, where these teams stack up against here. But yeah, Steve, what's one of your high level expectations for this game? Because for me, it's gonna be the fact that how the Niners are going to potentially stuff the ball down the Chiefs' throat, and will Mahomes have enough time? Will he have enough magic to give them another victory, another Super Bowl championship? So that's one thing I got my eye on. But what about you? What's one of your expectations for this game?
Yeah, I mean, I know this is. Can you actually go back to the other slide? You know, this is one of the ones where I'm looking at. Um, yeah, this is actually. You have the defensive splits here.
We do,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you. Yeah, so going back to this, right? We talk about all playoffs, right? Oh man, it feels bad against Patrick Mahomes and the Mahomes magic, but I think this is where the stop ends, and he's done nothing but win and win. We've seen that. We've seen how the lines in our model got shaped by the career, points above average, right? I mean, Mahomes is literally in a different stratosphere than most of the league. I mean, the quarterback starting today, but with that being said, we look back here and we've been talking all year about what has been the difference with these Chiefs and how they've been winning games. It's been on their defense, and it's really hasn't been Patty Mahomes being Patty Mahomes. But you kind of said it right there, Kev. I mean, you look at this EPA rush defense, right? You see here Kansas City towards the quote unquote bottom, right. And San Francisco, you go back over to the EPA offensive splits, right. You look at where San Francisco ranks in terms of EPA rush, right? Like this is going to be strength on weakness, weakness on strength, and then a little bit of strength on strength. And I'm really excited to see this. But yeah, the game plan absolutely looks to be, yeah, we have the best running back in the league. And I know the Bills watch is going to be hating, like, oh, it's Josh Allen. No, it's CMC. All right. You've got all these other dynamic, powerful athletes who can't, not just catching the ball, but running the ball. Debo, Ayuk, maybe Elijah Mitchell, little sprinkle, little tease later on the segment, right? But yeah, I think this is going to be a game where you see San Francisco game plan for this. You have a all season worth of data. You know where you can hurt them. Now, can you execute? And spoiler, I'm feeling pretty confident here on the 49ers. I've said that 3 times, and I've been wrong about, taking the other team. Said about the Bills,
Yeah.
said about the Ravens, and I'm saying about the 49ers, but I feel pretty damn good this time. So we'll see.
yeah. No, I don't. I mean, I have some stuff to add, but I don't. It's the same. It's the same kind of takeaway that San Francisco really seems like the easy pick here, and I think there's just so much momentum on the ground. They run about 6 times more a game already. The San Francisco 49ers do. So that you're talking about strength on strength or strength on weakness here. I mean, this is something they're already doing, already a huge part of their efficiency. The other 2 angles I haven't heard yet is, Green Bay being a team that San Francisco played in the last 2 weeks and obviously almost lost to them, but ended up pulling out that win. And then Detroit are both teams that Kansas City lost to. Right? Kansas City lost to both those teams. And so what can San Francisco do? I think Green Bay is probably your best bet here because going back, understanding a team that you're probably somewhat familiar with as you just played them. What did you take away from playing them, and what did they do well against Kansas City that you can replicate? So I think, maybe using some of the synergies there, but I mean, yeah, I just don't see how Kansas City stops CMC. Like I think that's
Yeah.
basically what's going to come down to.
So point counterpoint to kind of collectively our angle here. What the Chiefs defense was able to do the week prior, I guess technically 2 weeks prior, against the Ravens, who in and of themselves are also a very potent / efficient rushing team, they effectively rendered that useless, and they forced Lamar and the Ravens into a higher pass rate than they had all season long, basically. So can Spags and that defense replicate anything like that against the Niners? That's going to be talking about strength on strength, or like chess match, like Spags versus Shanahan. How does that look? Because I'm very curious about that one.
Yeah, I don't know if I quite believe that. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not disagreeing with what the stat line show, Kev. But do you think it was more so that Spags dictated what they had to do, or did Baltimore get cute? Because I felt like even from early on, we saw a team who has gone through running backs, Dobbins, he got hurt earlier on. Then we head down to Gus Edwards, who's tearing up the league for a while, right? And then they kind of go rinse and repeat, fill in the next back, fill in the next back. And then they kind of just stayed away from that. They didn't run Lamar a lot in that game. They made him a pocket, or try to make him a pocket passer for most of that game. And I didn't really understand why. When you saw against Houston, when they got back to that run game and let Lamar be Lamar, they tore them up. So, and I'm genuinely asking you, do you think that was all Spags, or was that Baltimore being Baltimore, or a combination of both?
I don't think the Ravens did themselves any favors.
Yeah,
I'll meet you in the middle there for sure.
Sure.
But it seemed like once their initial plan, the Ravens' initial plan of rushing the ball, wasn't going as scripted in the first, 15 or first quarter and a half, whatever, then they effectively abandoned it. Like they had no other tricks up their sleeve, or didn't even want to give it a shot. And yeah, that's partially on Baltimore. I'll give you that. But you got to, I still like, if you can replicate even half of that effect against the Niners and CMC in particular, then that really potentially flips the script, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I only say that because like I see your point, but I almost think about it like the Chiefs got lucky that the Ravens abandoned that game plan. They got lucky. I don't think they're gonna have that same kind of luck against San Francisco.
Yeah, I think they've just had the 4-leaf clover every time. This is a team that goes against Miami with no secondary, like insanely beat up on defense. They kicked 4 field goals in the red zone. Then they go to Buffalo. Buffalo was controlling the game, and they just ended up missing the kick. And if Josh Allen completes that one throw, which was a wide open touchdown, to me, they keep dodging the bullet. And there is a perfect, you can go look it up, a frame where Lamar threw that interception. There's literally not anybody within 20 yards if he just ran. And I'm with Steve here. I don't think Spags did anything that made them do anything. The Baltimore Ravens had horrible play calling. They were behind, and then they had a lot of things not go against them. I mean, you're talking about Zay Flowers fumbling legitimately as close as you potentially can get, on the goal line there. So I don't know. This just seems like a lot of luck. You can call it magic, the Mahomes magic. I think the other huge thing, just because it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean this is not a factor. Thuney or whatever the guard's name is, he's out. Pro Bowl guy out. Mm-hmm. Just because it hasn't been a big deal or wasn't a big deal last week doesn't mean that that's never going to be a big deal. And we don't see that stick out like a sore thumb this week. Now, San Francisco has slid hardcore on defense. This is now, if you look at who they've been the last 4 weeks, they would be the worst defense in the league if you use those games from an EPA standpoint in those 4 games. So I mean, this defense is doing some weird things. Now, is that small sample size and we should expect regression to the mean? Is something going on? I don't have the answer there. I would tend to think regression is some sort of, not the worst defense in the league. There's just a lot of synergies here. There's just a lot of synergies here.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, anybody that want to sit here and then they would just go, but Patrick Mahomes, I have to give you like 30%. Like, you're right. I won't give you 50%, but like that it's actually true. Like, there is some untangible thing, and we've seen it with Brady. There were many years where it was easy to bet against him.
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't matter because Brady, right? And now Mahomes can
Right.
Mahomes. So I think there's always that. And I would tend to bury people that tell me like I can't not take Patrick Mahomes plus money, but I kind of understand. It is at this point until proven otherwise, like it actually is a thing.
Yeah, and then
Right.
one final thing to Sal's point about the defense and them being slide. That's a good time to bring up Charles Omenihu, who tore his ACL in that last game. So he's going to be out there. He's one of their D edge, and one of their better
Oh
D
yeah,
edge
yeah,
they
yeah.
have on the squad. So how does
This
that
is
look,
Kansas
right?
City.
Yeah, sorry, yes,
Mhm.
Kansas City's DN. Yes, thank you. Now obviously they still have Chris Jones on
Starter,
D
right?
line. Yeah, absolutely. So, but again, against a team that is literally, can we go back to the offensive splits again? The creme de la creme of the rushing, right? Rushing and pass, but rushing.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
does that open
offense.
up?
You for them, you
Yeah,
can just say
exactly.
offense.
Yes.
They do everything, right?
Yeah. So something to keep an eye out on.
No,
Okay.
it's a good point. I mean, obviously, we're gonna get into it. The market is really the thing, though, that's toying with me. Like we're not seeing them. I mean, and
Yeah.
this is a weird market too, where it's double the length of a normal market, right?
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into some of the nuance there, okay? Because we got a lot here. We got our model breakdown up top, kind of our team-based stats in the middle there, and then a snapshot of the
Can I
market
just
and
use
some
the
market
quarterback
books.
data really quick though? I want to point something out. Like we can talk about Mahomes magic, and that is true. But if you go back to that quarterback graph, like who Patrick Mahomes has been this year has been very, 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 very different than who
Mhm.
he's been in past years. This guy is in the likes of Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson. So all the hate that Lamar got last week, Lamar isn't clutch. Da da da. Well, they're basically the same quarterback this season, and you see from an EPA standpoint, Purdy is him. So
Yeah,
look, again, is there an intangible here? I think the answer is it looks like maybe, but what's that actually worth? And
right,
and quantifying that, like, but
right,
Mahomes, and we've talked about it all season. This team has won primarily through having a really good defense, and it hasn't been on this super efficient offense. And quite frankly, I don't know that they've won any games in the NFL through this crazy efficient offense where they're just outscoring. They've basically scored first, scored enough, and then their defense is held on. I mean, can they do that in this game? Well, let's talk about it.
okay. Yeah, let's talk about before we get into our model prediction stuff here. I want to spend a couple minutes talking about like the market element of this
Yeah.
here for a sec too, because you mentioned it. Yeah, it is a unique market. Obviously, it's a couple weeks as opposed to just the normal in season 7-day market, if you will. And back to the Patrick Mahomes effect too. Like, yes, there is something intangible, unquantifiable, perhaps. What does it say though that the market is where it is at and where it opened at? This opened in favor of the Niners at about 1.5, okay, and
Yeah.
is right now settling at about 2, and probably, in my personal opinion, will close at or around this 2 as well. So through and through, it's going to be favoring the Niners here. So how much are people out there, and maybe even us to an extent, given more weight to the Mahomes effect than we should? Because if it was actually worth something, wouldn't there be action taken on it and bet accordingly?
It was, to your point, because technically it's difficult for an opening like this, because what's the difference between a look ahead for the NFL and the actual opening? It's
Mhm.
very difficult, but because the liquidity is so high, I mean, people were definitely betting the NFL matchup like the minute it was set. And I'm sure there's probably maybe $1 million handle on people pre-betting this matchup. You know what I mean? So there was numbers at 3. So +3 you could have gotten for Kansas City for a very limited amount of time. But early money moved this market to 1.5. Because it was sitting at 2.5, 2, 1. It got as low as 1. And then it's been bought back. So early money seems to have been in support of Chiefs. And then I don't even want to call it late money, because it's not in this week. It's like
Right.
midweek money for like the last 7 days. Um, and the limits have started to go up at Pinnacle. I think Pinnacle right now it's 75K. You can bet. Um, we're still not really seeing any movement yet. So I don't know we're not at this level. Like if you're waiting, I don't know. And I also don't know, is the NFL an exception? Like you usually can bet 200,000. Can you bet 500,000 for this game? Because it's just so
Mhm.
liquid and they're just waiting. I don't know.
I don't know either. And you know, for anyone watching our content or familiar with some of the things that we talk about, you often hear us talk about the efficient market and kind of the foundation, the efficient market hypothesis, right? And in and of that is sort of this underlying assumption that the market behaves and will behave rationally. In the aggregate, the market is going to be, you know, more predictive, and you will not be able to beat you as an individual, not be able to beat the market and the wisdom of the crowd, right? But in this Super Bowl lead up here, just anecdotally and viscerally, it just feels like there's so much irrationality being bet into the market. Maybe not so much on the sides or the totals. I don't know. Maybe yes on that element of it, but it just seems like the market is not efficient like it normally is during
In what
the
way?
course of the season because
Because there's no movement.
of the market participants. And because if there's ever an exception to the rule and with the efficient market, it's this year in the Super Bowl. The
Yeah,
public may not be able to move the sides and the totals per se, but they're moving a lot of markets because of the pure betting handle, because of the pure raw dollars that are being bet.
and we're actually even seeing like it's getting big enough that FanDuel's making a stance and ESPN's making the opposite stance. So right now on FanDuel, you can get a 2.5. To me, that's trying to get people to bet 49ers. And then ESPN is laying a 1.5. So I'm assuming they're trying to get people to bet the Chiefs. So they're clearly, in my mind, you know, marketing, so to speak, to those those clientele, like the people that want to be backers for the Chiefs. Oh, I can get a 2.5 and -115. They you know, they don't
Yeah,
need to get
sure.
break even. And then ESPN, they're thinking, you know, the same idea, like, oh, people that want to back 49ers. It does seem like the public sentiment is Kansas City or Kansas City Chiefs and backing Patrick Mahomes here. It does feel like that's the quote unquote public side. And if there was a time that you might want to know that, although I don't know. I mean, I think other than those two books, it's 2 across the board.
Okay. Yeah, you
Like,
might be right. I haven't looked much today as we're recording this, but yeah, to your point, we're still relatively early until kickoff, you know, so there's still likely to be some quite mature money coming in on this thing. So it'll be
Yeah, and
interesting.
I'm just looking last year, and I can pull up what this is it is this year, but you know, looking at the Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl, right? So that game was played on February 12th, and the line opened. I'm just looking at Pinnacle right now. Line opened out on January 29th at Eagles -1.5, right? And it got some early action between the 29th and 31st, and then and when I say early action, I mean between 1.5 to 2 and to 1 and kind of all in between. And then you hit towards like February 2nd. February 2nd through 3rd, no action. I'm sorry, February 2nd through February 6th, essentially, no action. Or I'm sorry, no
Okay.
movement, I should say.
Right.
That's a better way to say it, no movement. And then it's just there until you start seeing around the 10th. So this would be 2 days before Super Bowl, and then you start seeing wars again between the ones and a half, where it ultimately ended up at -1. So again, that's just one. That's just last year. I'm not saying that that's
so
whatever, but I'm just curious.
I think it's just a countdown until the limits are going to get to whatever is going to be the highest, and then that's when the big dogs are going to start taking positions.
Right, and then that's my
Until that
point. Yeah,
happens, there's no point to bet it for them.
agreed. 100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So
I
I guess
hope this thing closes at 3. Obviously, I hope that we think that the
Right.
number's 3.
yeah.
We would
Yeah.
like to see support. The current picket handle is $8.3 million. And this is aggregate data, right? So this is all pretty much public book and people sharing data.
Yep.
And right now, 71% of the bets, of the
Mhm.
money is on Kansas City, and 65% of the bets are on San Francisco, on Kansas City. So
Watch
71%
out for
of the
that.
money, 65%. Yeah,
Watch
reverse
out for
line.
that reverse line movement. Yeah. I knew it.
And then the money line
Yeah.
is even more,
Okay.
68% on the money line for
Interesting.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
So the quote unquote public is very excited.
They are, yeah, they are, and they will remain excited. But we remain excited as well because we have output for the game in
Yeah.
terms of edge, baby. So
Woo.
let's go over that real quick here. So Super Bowl 49ers and Chiefs. Our number says 3. This opened at 1.5. So at that point, there we're forecasting about an 8% edge, which even at the 2 now, there's still some edge to be had.
Yeah.
I think it's about 2.5 or maybe 3.5%. Excuse me, if I remember the value framework correctly. So, yeah, go Niners. I guess. What's their hail to the shit? No, that's the Commanders. Whatever the damn saying is. Go Niners. Yeah, I will say just for the between the three of us and anyone who's listening, I guess. I didn't. I'm not on the Niners because I still have the futures, the Niners Super Bowl futures plus 1,000. So I'm fully hedged out of that position. I just took the Chiefs money line at plus like 101. I got them, so I'm guaranteed. I opted for the guaranteed profit in this case. So
good for you.
Good. I mean, which is another technically, guys, this is 3 years in a row now, right? Where our process
at least got us to the team in the Super Bowl.
Identifying value and forecasting, performance for certain teams has paid dividends. This year with the Niners, you realized some value as well, Seth, on the Ravens from last week.
I ended up getting. I almost made. What did I make on that? About 5x on my ticket.
Yeah,
nice.
Which is the point, baby. Double dip method. Now, I don't have the double dip method. I didn't take our own advice on that one, but nonetheless, lucky to be here. But yeah, this year Niners. Yeah,
Kevin went with the balls deep method.
So yeah, shout out to us, and perhaps variants will come to kick us next year, but until then, we ride, baby. So, all right, yeah, our number's 3, Steve. So I mean, again, digesting a little more about what these two teams are and how they play. What's your any additional thoughts or takeaways for how these teams are going to perform?
No, I mean, we talk more about having more discussion on this, but no, not from my original kind of assessment. I think this is the week where we kind of see exactly who these teams are and how they stack up, and I think the clock strikes midnight for the Chiefs and for everything that the 49ers have done so well all season long. I don't get the Brock Purdy hate. I don't get the 49ers overmatched here. I hear that sort of talk here, and I get. It's more people saying that not that necessarily the 49ers are better, but they can't bet against Patrick Mahomes, which, hey, listen, I hear you, but, I bet me instead, no Vic. I'll put my Venmo up. But I will say, though, I want to call something out real quick, though, and I want to kick this back to you, Seth, because I want to peel back the curtain if we can just a little bit, because this is our raw model initially was a little bit different.
Let's talk.
It was a smidge, maybe 23 points different.
Smidge, yeah. More like 29 points different.
Yeah.
So we originally ran the numbers. So the way we run the model is we run home versus away, and then away versus home, and those numbers will be inverses of each other. So we ran the numbers, and obviously in this situation, Kansas City is home. Right, they're not actually home, but they're the home team. And we got this output that said that Kansas City was favored by 26 points. And we're like, and that's a regressed number, right? So that's like the raw number is like, I don't even know, some astronomical number. So it's like, what the
red flags to say the least.
Yeah. I'm like, what the hell? Like, there's no, and then I'm like, okay, there's some error in the code. Like I'm like, okay, it must be like having an issue with Purdy, because Purdy doesn't have, like, Purdy's luckily, he's got, I think 14 games, away games, but like, he's not got a ton of data, but I'm like, something happened where like, it's using like one observation or something. And what it was is that there was this crazy correlation between Kansas City and Vegas, because we also have in the model where the game is played, and we also have the team, and there was basically a correlation that was happening, because think about how many times Kansas City has played in Vegas and beat the shit out of the Raiders. And so that's basically what it was. So Yeah, so we basically had to remove that variable, and then we remove that variable, we get actually this is even a conservative number. The raw number or the regress true number is like -5, which is a little bit true and or a little definitely noisy. I mean, and not true. Like I don't think the true number is 5, and I don't think that we would have like a implied like 20% edge or something. This for us is we went very conservative by going with 3, and you may even argue maybe we should have just regressed even more and just made this number 2. Basically you can flip-flop 49ers Chiefs and home versus away, and you get a very similar number. That's what made me feel confident in this conservative 3. And yeah, but yeah, there was but our model, I will say a game like this is definitely not its strength. I'll definitely say that. This forecast is probably the weakest forecast that we've come up with as far as comparing it to any one game, just because we model home versus away and away versus home. This is a very unique game in that that's not true. And then there's actually even a weirder artifact. Last year, where was the game played last year? It was in Arizona. So it was home and home versus away and away versus home. But then the 2 years prior, literally, it was played where the team.
Oh yeah, Tampa Bay, right?
Yeah, and
Tampa Bay and then LA.
Yeah, so going back and looking and isolating these games, like you actually, the point being, there's some weird stuff there. So I don't know. I feel confident with this forecast, but there is the way our model's set up. It's not like a true. People are mostly taking power ratings and then run simulations on that, and I think that's a great methodology. But that's kind of one of our secret sauce things is we model the game, and for the most part, you need to know who the home team and away team is. This is a game where the home field advantage doesn't matter. So that's how we kind of end up at this 3, right? If you get a 5 and you subtract out that, you kind of end up at this number. So we ride.
We do indeed. It's going to be fascinating. And again, we'll piggybacking off of what you said, Seth. We just looking at how these teams stack up, and we talked about the Mahomes magic and his career EPA, and I was like at first a little surprised, but then you put it in context, it makes a little more sense. But someone looking at this for the first time might say, first column career QB EPA, like Purdy is better than Mahomes. Like, come on, what are you talking about here? And sample size
in that sample, right? Yeah. Sample size is a fickle beast. I mean, at this point, that's all the data we got.
Right. Precisely that.
But also, like, isn't this how legends are born? Like, it's Mahomes magic until all of a sudden it's Purdy magic, and then Purdy, they win 3 championships, and then it's like,
right.
Like the narratives, like we learn this with all of this, this conspiracy theory. Like the narratives are narratives until like it's the classic Confucius say, like, don't argue with the fool, because from a distance, no one knows who is who. It's like, I don't know how many people we've talked about, and it's like, it's rigged. And then the thing that's rigged doesn't happen. And then it's just, there's no follow-up. There's no accountability. So it's like, all these narratives are narratives until they're not. And then there's a new narrative. And then that's a narrative until it's not. And it's like, it's never based in the information we have. Full information.
It's cherry picked. Yeah. It's cherry picked. Yeah. It is, but hey, it's the world we live in, baby. It's the world we got.
This is the thing. I'm like the biggest important stat here: echo rate. Look at these echo rates. You have an 11% edge on drives getting to the 40 or better for San Francisco. That is going to be huge here. Can San Francisco actually sustain drives? If you get like 2, 3 and outs, look, I'm going to get 1 degen day less on Saturday. I'm taking Monday off. Like, I'm hammering, San Francisco -20.5. Like, because I'm then wanting to target some pretty big like some tail outcomes, like big blowout.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a good tease. Sorry, Steve. Do you got something?
No, I'm here for it. I'm here all.
Yeah. 100%, man. So that's a pretty good tease because obviously with the Super Bowl, there's a lot more going on in terms of the betting, the attack surface of the books
Sure.
with all the novelty props, etc. So we've been talking and jostling around a couple different ones. Now we're not. I don't think we're officially going to be giving out any no pass funnel or even a run funnel angle with this one, but I just want to discuss it, kind of get your guys' general takes and 2 cents because I was doing live today and that's all anyone wanted was fucking what's your prop bet? What do you bet? Tell me some good locks, all that type of stuff. So let's talk about a little bit here. First of all, does bankroll management count when it's a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I say that somewhat in jest.
Oh, okay. Like,
but,
we just got these people a 56% win rate in the NFL. Congratulations to all the board members. Congratulations for your first profitable NFL season. Guarantee, I'm sure it's one of the first. And yeah, you don't want to piss all that profit away because you go ape shit on the Super Bowl. But
or and hear me out, double it and give it to the next season.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there
man.
you go.
So yeah, I say that somewhat in jest, obviously, because you open one of the books and you just see the amount of shit that you can bet on, and it's nauseating almost. And you mentioned the word the tails, Seth. So maybe let's talk a little bit about some of those type of things. Because do you guys have Seth? Do you guys have some coin already put down on some prop bets, or are you kind of waiting?
Yeah. Happy to go through them. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll go and then kick it over to you, Steve. So I'm gonna continue to look into this, but and I think I got fleeced, so don't tail me here. I've been really having a tough time with the Elijah Mitchell over 1.5 receptions. This number
Rushes.
Sorry. Yeah, rushes. Sorry, what did I say? Attempts?
Receptions.
Gotcha. Yeah, rushes. 1.5 rushes. He's definitely done this before. In some games he's gone way over. There does seem to be a correlation with game state, which I think makes this tricky. And then the further thing that makes this tricky is game state, meaning like he gets more carries when they're winning by a lot. So like garbage time is what you call that. And then garbage time doesn't really exist in the same way in the NFL. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're winning by 21 in the fourth and there's 7 minutes left, you're still going to run Christian McCaffrey because if Christian McCaffrey blows his knee out, like that sucks, but you're still going to win. Like, and the season's over. So you're not like, oh, okay, well, there's no point in like injuring our starters because like you're going to win the game and the season's over. So that gets tricky to figure that out. Now, I mean, we saw it last week. I mean, you can have Christian McCaffrey be the workhorse, and then like he needs a break. Like Christian McCaffrey like tweaked his neck, or like he basically like slammed his own head on the ground. So but 1.5 just seems too low. So, not seems too low. It forecasts too low. It sims too low. Again, though, that's really caveated because of these specifics. And if you don't price those correctly, then it could be a really bad bet. So I wouldn't tail. In fact, the market's moved against me. I think I laid like minus 120 and it's sitting at plus 105. So at those numbers, I don't know. It's even more enticing. The other thing is shout out Sumer Sports. If you aren't already signed up, go make sure you read and get access to their free breakdown. One of the things that we learned from Tage and that preview is yards after catch for both of these teams. And so I'm wanting to try to target that in an interesting way. So one is that I like Kittle's under reception. So I've taken that on its own, under 3.5 receptions. He's really become a huge part of this run game. And if the thesis is they're going to be running the shit out of this ball, then I think they're going to be using him like they have in the last couple of weeks, where he's going to be a primary blocker, and he's really good at that, right? And then the other part of that is still under the receptions at 3.5, but then over his 47.5 rushing yards. Why? Basically, he's going to get a couple targets, but on those targets, he runs for 20 or 30 yak, right? And you cover the over yardage, but he actually only gets 1 or 2 targets. So he's actually covered under 3.5 receptions, over 47.5 3 times in the season. And he actually had 4 receptions and over the yards in 3 more games. So it came down to that 3rd and 4th reception for 6 games. That parlay for the under 3.5 over 47.5 plays 1439 plus 1439. So they're pricing that as basically a 6% chance. I think it's much, much greater than that. That one's going to be painful, right, when he gets that 4th catch, but I still think it's a good bet.
Yep.
And right now that's all I got, but I really do want to sit down and I'm going to try to target the yak a little bit more. So a little bit, trying to come up with these interesting dynamics of maybe low receptions but high yield on yards, and maybe there's a couple raw yardage I end up taking.
Okay. And you, Steve, you said you hadn't quite taken anything yet, but are you eyeballing something?
Yeah, I'm definitely eyeballing. I haven't yet. I just want to echo what Seth said. Shout out to Sumer Sports. If you have not read that breakdown, it's phenomenal. 2 things I'm looking at here. One data driven, but more so to feed my own ego, to clap back at these folks. And I'm not a Niners fan at all, but this whole Brock Purdy is just a game manager. He's not good narrative. It's just it still irks me to this day. It's like, you guys are not watching the game. But Sumer Sports on their breakdown, they have they have what each team's tendencies, frequencies, and ranks are in terms of production on route trees, air yards, passing and defending. And one of the places where San Francisco shines is throwing the ball deep. When I say deep, I mean 20 and 25 plus air yards. And Kansas City actually is a little weak there, specifically in the middle of the field. And so looking at potentially some targets or excuse me, some yards for Brandon Ayuk as their speedster, see if he can get something downfield. And then interestingly enough, I'm not quite sure how to do this. I'm probably going to go back to Unabated Sim. Again, shout out Unabated and run some simulations on this, but it's going to be strength on strength because San Francisco is also the number 1 ranked team efficiently wise, looking at quick passes, slant screens, and outs. But Kansas City is also pretty good at defending those same routes. So what's going to win out here? Depending on what it looks like, I'm probably going to look and see if there's any value on McCaffrey receptions, and then I'm looking at Purdy completions as well. So again, TBD, depending on what the Sims say and what I kind of go through with Sumer Sports, but we'll kind of see there.
Really, and then maybe target receptions. You're going to target receptions and yards for Purdy.
Depending on what there is. So I'm the yards for Ayuk. I'm thinking explosive play. That's my angle there.
That the yards for Ayuk I can get behind. Purdy ones are tough for me. I think you're gonna if they're gonna run the ball.
Depending on what I have not looked at all what the line is. So I'm saying depending on what those are at.
Yeah.
Because to your point, stuff, if it's like 27.5, I'm no. But like, if I get something,
even if it's 21.5, like what?
Right.
Why?
And again, this is why number. And I want to say, I want to have this conversation because I think this is really good. But this goes back to, for those who just what your bet process is, and it's the same exact concept for betting sides and totals or whatever it may be. You should never make a bet saying, "Oh, I like this team" or "I like this whatever." It's "I like this at this number," right? So yeah, go ahead, Seth.
Yeah, no, I was just running the Sims right now to see. So yeah, the median for him is 21.15. There would be like teeny bits of value. It's really actually a negative EV on both sides.
Okay, so there you go.
It looks like there are 20, but like most of the market has it at 20.5, not 21.5, which is interesting. I think the market's pricing in a heavy run game.
Sure.
Now that doesn't mean it just doesn't. I mean, but I think the thesis has to be, like you're saying, they're going to go with quick passes. But I think that's hard for me to buy into. I'm not going to lie. Like, why, if you're Shanahan, like, oh, they're good at quick passes, like, let's see if we're better than them at quick passes.
No,
like I think you're like, okay, let's go. They suck here. I like the Ayuk one. You said that they're weak in the middle of the field. Is that what you said, or you said at the passes over 25 yards?
Yeah, KC defense weak, past 25 yards, middle of the field.
So I wonder,
ranked 28th in the league.
If there's a week, this is the week. Like, guarantee there's like longest reception.
Sure, yeah,
over 25. Yeah, like I bet you for especially Ayuk, even like maybe even
Kittle,
middle
like
of the field, all of them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
take those tails, because to your point, if you're Shanahan, this is be my game plan. We're going to run the fucking ball, and it's probably going to be successful. And then we're going to do that for a couple drives, and then I'm going to fucking try to bang one off because they suck in the middle of the field, or they're playing man, and they're going to have to adjust to the run game, and then I'm going to
Yep.
fucking hit them,
Right.
hit
Play
them
action
way,
overhead.
yeah,
Yeah.
or whatever, with these Debo fucking, whatever the hell they're gonna like. So I like that angle a lot. Like
Yeah. And I will
those
say,
bigger explosive plays.
yeah, and I will say one thing, kind of going back to your thought on Elijah Mitchell. Again, shout out Summer Sports here, but they're looking in terms of San Francisco's offense and facing a heavy box, right? Because the first thing you think about is, okay, this team runs the ball well, then we'll just stack the box, right? And again, pick your poison with San Francisco, but let's use that hypothetical. That's not uncommon for what San Francisco has seen all year long.
No.
They're fourth in the league in terms of how often they face a heavy box, and yet they're still first in EPA per rush. They're third in yards per carry. They're first in success rate, and they're second in explosive. So there's something to be said. And to your point, Seth, I think you're convincing me more to also tell the Elijah Mitchell, because if that is your game, if you're Shanahan, that's your game plan, and it does make sense because that's what you do really well, then just keep feeding the rock, right? Yeah, you're going to get McCaffrey for 90% of your runs, but you got to believe Mitchell gets some scraps. So I'm kind of,
but the scraps is the question, because are there scraps in a Super Bowl? And that's really that bet. Are there scraps in a Super Bowl? Unless McCaffrey gets hurt, unless he can't, like he needs to leave the game, is there an actual like, okay, we're going to, and I'm not sure, like I bet it. So like say la vie,
Sure.
but like, that's where like, that's the only reason this market's priced the way it is that exact reason. Are there scraps that actually Elijah Mitchell gets in there?
Yeah, it makes sense. And yeah, I forget if you mentioned it when you were talking about the yak stuff, but San Francisco number 1, KC number 2 in the whole league in yak per reception. So yeah, something to definitely keep an eye on with that angle. The only other one, and I obviously cannot take credit for this. Full credit goes to Rufus Peabody, who was talking about this with the Superbook. Yeah, please, Rufus, please. But the other prop that I got action on is Patrick Mahomes' longest rush. So Rufus actually got this at 13.5, I think closer to open. And when I checked and when I saw the clip, it was at 12.5. So I scooped it at 12.5. So still 12.5 in the marketplace now. And his commentary and angle about it was Mahomes' rush rate jumps from the regular season in the postseason. So he runs the ball, scrambles, however you want to phrase it, more often than he normally does, and he slides less, trying to get the extra yards, trying to actually get the first down, trying to make Willis team to whatever, that type of stuff. So two data points in the direction and one great mind behind the prop. So that's really all I need to tailor, maybe. So
and just to piggy off using that logic, that would be another reason to not bet this the Mitchell prop. He got 0 carries in the Green Bay game, and he had 4 carries in the Detroit game. And we know, I think at least 2 of those carries where CMC got hurt, or he had to leave. He needed to sub himself out. So yeah, like we're talking about trends in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, listen, the trend I heard is CMC is Mr. Glass.
Hey, you want to talk about some next season under future? Like if you can bet hit McCaffrey's under season props next year, I'm all over that, because I would looking ahead already, but like super expect some regression in terms of his load share that he had this year and running back age health. That's something I'm already got my eye on. So I'm going to hammer that when that comes out.
Can I ask you guys? So if you want to target yak, how do you do that? Like, what are some of your guys' thoughts on that? Like, so like obviously there's one like Kittle is that unique situation when we're talking about yak, because like he can bust off a 50-yard run and only get a handful of receptions. But do you really want to bet that same angle for Ayuk or any of these other guys like Debo? Just because point being, like, you really don't want to take under their receptions, because if they're feeding them the rock and they're just running, that's like, you don't want to hurt yourself. So it's like, how do you actually make a good bet that actually shifts the stacks the deck in your favor of you taking advantage of this angle other than just yards.
Yeah, because the various options, you're going to have longest reception, total receptions.
So I guess that's the answer.
Total
I guess it's
yards.
longer reception. It's longest receptions for a lot of guys because you catch it at 10 yards, but you run for 30. That's a 40-yard reception.
Right.
Yeah. In theory, like with just focusing on one only, like that's the one that lends itself to the yak angle more than any of the other ones, in my opinion. So yeah, but if you wanted to also find, try to get some correlation in there as well with another play, yeah, good question. I don't know where you would find what angle you would have, or what other edge you could find to tack on with that.
So Debo over longest reception, 21.5. The retail books are actually pricing this quite different than the sharp books. Who you said Ayuk, right? 24.5 at the market making books. And it looks to be 24.5 everywhere else.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, with the Ayuk stuff, like with the Chiefs being a little quote unquote susceptible down the middle and far down the field, that makes sense. That makes sense for him. With Debo, like those are fairly similar lines, 21 and 24. But I think what are the total yardage set lines at for both of those guys? Are they comparable?
Let me see.
58 for Debo, and for Ayuk, it's 65.
65 and 61.
Yeah, I see 60. I'm just looking on
60. It just depends about the price you want to get. There's 61, 63, 65. This market is all over the place. You can get 61s.
Nice.
Okay. So yeah, I guess I'm just sitting here shooting the
but
shit.
But Debo
on
runs the ball more, right? So Debo's going to get some carries. So there's that's why his receiving numbers are a little bit less.
Okay. Yeah, theoretically that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a great answer for you on that one. Honestly, don't. But
if you got answers, put them in the comments. I want to know. Like I think for Kittle's unique that angle of low receptions, high yards can happen. I think the other guys though, you don't want to do that same thing, because if you want to target Ayuk 8 times, like that's not, you shouldn't penalize yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed. So, yeah. So when it's all said and done, over under, not including any future. No one else has any futures right on this, technically, except me, right?
No, Finn's way down.
Yeah.
What did Ravens say?
Flock 'em. Flocka. But no, I mean, this is just kind of for shits and gigs, for fun. Doesn't really mean anything, but just individually, over under $1,000, you guys are going to bet when it's all said and done in the game.
Oh, I'm already past that.
You're already okay. I'm trending. Yeah, I'm trending there. Yeah, I'm at like 750 right now, and I'll hit there for sure. But
yeah, I'm already like mental mathing my bets out, and I'm going to be there too. So
yeah, I guess I was a little surprised. Like I opened my pick and I was like, damn, I already got 750 on this. But some of that also includes my hedge out of the Niners futures. So
yeah, but that's still
count that or not.
But you're going to win. I mean, that's just good foresight.
Right. Yeah. So okay. Whew. It should be a doozy. Boys. So, okay. Anything else, Seth or Steve, that you guys have as far as a high-level takeaway, or any other lasting comments, thoughts, expectations for what we're going to see on Sunday?
I think I don't want to give bad advice, but like I think that there's going to be a little bit of writing on the wall if you see 2 3-and-outs for Kansas City, and you see let's say there's 10 plays and 8 of them are rushes, and San Francisco is able to score a touchdown on that first drive, or even second drive with 8 rushes and 10 passes. I think it's going to be a long day for Kansas City.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's just again, I know it's like a broken record here, but I'm not going to overthink this one. Everything I'm looking at is telling me San Francisco. I'm riding San Francisco. I'm going to prop bet on San Francisco, and I'm just expecting the day. So I'm looking for a good game. T Swift must be stopped, and I'm sure I'll get assassinated for that right now. It's a sniper outside my window. But no, I'm excited for the game. I really do hope it's a good game, but I will be. So I'm kind of with you. I will sprinkle a little bit on some of those tails where you can get those alt lines, SF in a blowout.
Yep. Yeah, and if you're bold enough to do them now, like you're gonna get outsized prices just because it's 2, right? And we don't know where the market's gonna go. I think that there's going to be a lot of models that can go each way. I know Robbie's model has Kansas City as 0.5, dog, meaning that there's value at the 2. So I know there's going to be. I don't know that this is going to be consensus model wise, meaning it's going to be consensus for the pros. So 6.5, 13.5, 20.5, like you don't be degenerates out there. Like if you want to have that action, bet a little bit more on the 6.5, bet a little bit less on the 13.5, a little bit even less on the, but like those, they're rare, but like this is the game when that can happen. I mean, we saw 2 or 3 years ago, Tampa Bay versus Kansas City. I mean, he has kryptonite. He can have bad games, and it's
right. Tails never fails. Takes on
just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't happen. I'm telling you that offensive line angle is still an unknown in my mind. Like just because they had answers doesn't mean they still will, and doesn't mean that it's not an issue this time. And that's another huge thing to keep an eye out for, because you'll see that early.
Yeah, in the betting world, when every edge matters, tails never fails takes on a couple different meanings.
You going with tails?
So, nah,
I'm a heads guy. I'm a heads guy, man. I'm convinced.
Oh, shit. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Double entendre.
Yeah, all good. All right, boys and girls, that will do it for us. I appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Super Bowls are right around the corner. The season's done and over with, like we said. I appreciate everyone who has tuned into us this season. Again, shout out to any board members who are listening. Hopefully you tailed accordingly and made money with the model. Season's over, but the show doesn't stop for us. We will have various content for you guys into and through the off season. So stick around for more. Until then, good night, good luck, and go Niners.